Now, I am really surprised at how many college-age students do not know the meaning of this term here. Now, I don't want anybody to say anything out loud, but just a show of hands, how many of you know what that term means? Okay, all right, about 4 of you. That's the same response I got in the first class. Anti-Semitism is at least 3,000 years old. So basically what it means in one word is hatred of Jews. Now, Adolf Hitler was one of the biggest anti-Semites in modern times, but he's not the only. Anti-Semitism is a phenomenon that's growing worldwide. It's spreading again throughout Europe. There's a group called the neo-Nazis, and they're just as anti-Semitic as Adolf Hitler was. It means you hate Jews, and of course any of you can give your own reasons as to why. Now, I may hasten to state, I do not in any way intend to promote anti-Semitism. My wife is descended from Jews. I realize this college is located in the midst of a Jewish neighborhood, and some of you I somewhat suspect are Jews, and I'm not going to tell you how I guess. I have made some guesses. No, I would never, I'm not going to ask any of you out loud. You can tell me if you wish. But, all right. Now, the word Semite here comes from Noah's son Shem. Shem is said to have been the ancestor of the Arabian, the Amorite, and the Assyrian, and the Babylonian. Now, the Phoenicians, I'm putting that somewhat in parentheses. Some people believe the Phoenicians were actually Canaanite, even though they spoke a Semitic language. And you might ask, how could a Canaanite people speak a Semitic language? One of them might have served as a servant in a Semitic family for a time. So the Arabs are Semitic. Today you're Iraqi people. Iraqis are Semitic. The Assyrians, we're going to be mentioning them later on in the lesson. They are Semites. Several ancient peoples who tend to live around the Mesopotamian and Arabian region. Again, now the word nation comes from the same word as nativity. It means people who are related by birth. Now, we in the United States do not consider ourselves related by birth, but at the time period we're talking about, the Assyrians, for instance, claimed to be that they were all descended from Shem's son Ashur. The Ashur had several children, and they were all Assyrian. And same way with the Hittites, they said they were descended from Heth. So they were all descended from one man, and this made them consider themselves that nation. Descent from one man. Now, in addition to the Semitic peoples, there were other people known as Hamitic. They were your Egyptian, Canaanite, and Nubians. Now, a lot more people than that. You might ask, what about the Chinese? Ham had a son named Sin, the Sinites, and the Sinites are believed to have spread far abroad. For instance, the Sino-Japanese War. The word China comes from sign. So your Far Eastern peoples, by this reckoning, are believed to be Hamitic. Then, of course, your third son of Noah, Japheth, your Indo-European peoples, so it's said to be Japhetic. Peoples like the Hittites, the Greeks, the Romans, Europeans. Even though a bunch of Indo-European people have been found in China, this was something we did not know when I was young. But in recent years, we found evidence that a large Indo-European population did spread into China. Now, we're going to be talking more about the Indo-European peoples. Of course, when we talk about Greece and Rome in chapters 4 and 5, they were Indo-European, but also the next chapter is on India. In about 1800 BCE, a large group of people spread out from Europe, and they spread into India and became the Aryans. I'll write that in later. The Aryans, not Adolf Hitler's Aryans, but the Indian Aryans. And then the Persians, whom we will talk about before the lesson is over, they were Indo-European. The Persians are the modern Iranians. And of course your Greeks and Romans, Spanish, French, Celts, all these people. All right. Now, I left this class the other day and spent a whole weekend thinking about all the stuff that I know might be on your test. Now, when I say might be, I don't know what questions you're going to get and what questions other classes are going to get. So don't say, you said this was on the test. No, I didn't. If it is on the test, you might see it, you might not. Anyway, some stuff that might be. The word ka. That is an Egyptian word that is translated best into English as soul. The Egyptians believed everyone had a ka, and it's often shaped and depicted as being like a bird that upon death flies to the next world, to the afterlife. All right, ka. Now, Book of the Dead. Book of the Dead listed 10 things that you were expected to say to the gods when you went to your afterlife. And a lot of persons say it reminds them of the 10 Commandments that Moses wrote. And again, Moses was schooled in the Egyptian schools. So a lot of scholars have suspected he might have been influenced by it. But supposedly when you got to that afterlife, you were to be able to stand before the gods who were to judge you and say, I did not lie. I did not move my neighbor's landmark. Now, folks, this was a big, important issue in Egypt because in Egypt, every spring, a big flood came down. And when the flood was over, they would go and look at the landmarks, but some people were tempted to just get their sons and they shoved the landmark over a little bit in their favor. Some people have said that's maybe why the Egyptians finally built the pyramids, so because you couldn't move a pyramid. But anyway, here to say, I never moved my neighbor's landmark. I am no adulterer. I never committed a murder. 10 things that you were supposed to say, and some of those 10 are found in the I am no thief. Some of those 10 are found in the 10 Commandments. Cataract, again, that's a waterfall where the rivers of Africa flow for a while and then drop off. Then they'll flow for a while and drop off. Again, the continent of Africa appears somewhat to be terraced. The Egyptians looked on their kings as being gods. I don't know if I emphasized that enough. But they worshipped their kings, particularly after they were dead. It was believed that the kings were promoted to godhood more after they were dead than while they were alive, but they were also looked on as being divine while they were alive. And this will help us to understand why Pharaoh did not like to change his decisions. No, I'm talking about Egypt here. All of this is Egypt. Yeah, Egypt. Yes?
The book of Exodus.
The Book of the Dead?
That's what that means.
The Book of what?
Exodus. I don't know if it's saying right. Exodus.
Oh, no, wait now. The Book of Exodus. Okay. You're looking at page 29. What's page 29? The Book of Exodus was written by Moses, and it contains the Ten Commandments. The book of Exodus is the second book of the Bible.
So it's not the book of
It's not not the same book at all. The book of Exodus.
Oh.
No, not the same at all.
It just says it has like the commandments.
Actually, yeah, right here, the passage you're quoting from has the Ten Commandments. Which a lot of persons believe that Moses was influenced by the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Yeah, good question. All right, anybody else?
There were 5 more things. And
Actually, I can't quote you all the 10 of the Book of the Dead. The 5 of them I quoted, there are 5 that I know the 10 Commandments have in common with the Book of the Dead, but there were some others. And I can't quote all 10. Just basically, all I want you to remember about the Book of the Dead was the Egyptians, what they believed they had to answer to their gods in their next life, when it entered the portals of their afterlife. All right. What's that?
What was the first one again?
Anti-Semite hatred of Jews, strong Jew hatred.
Wait, hold on.
To me, this is extremely relevant in the 24th because this is going on very, very strongly, even on August 25th, 2014.
Was that not going on in Egypt?
Say again?
It was going on in Egypt.
Oh yes, the Pharaoh was an anti-Semite, and then in Persia there was a Persian king who made a decree to wipe out all Jews, but his decree was thwarted, it's gone on down through time. And one of my students, my first class, about the Crusaders, were strongly anti-Semite. Europeans have tended to have anti-Semitism in their mindset for the last 2,000 years. The Crusaders were especially, I'll talk more about the Crusades at the end of the semester.
Where did anti-Semitism come from? I mean,
You could have asked me, where did witchcraft come from? Or you could have asked me, where did the zodiac come from? Or where did, it's just simply, as we study the records, it's there. We can't tell you. And as for the rationale behind it, personally, I think there is none. But it's just shrouded in mystery as to where it came from, where it started, and then the mystery of how it spread and how it gets such a hold on people. I mean, if I were not in a state school, there are things I guess I could say, but I have to respect that this is, after all, a state college. But to me, the real issue behind anti-Semitism is more theology than it is psychology or rationality. Some people hate the Judeo-Christian God and are doing everything they can to fight a war against him. And this is true of people in all societies. Let's see. Now, oh yes, something else that I have not yet mentioned. On February 12th of this year, there was a debate between a creationist and suppose the father of the Mr. Science guy, Bill Nye and Ken Ham. The ancient world that we're talking about never had a conflict between science and religion. Religion was science and science was religion. There was no conflict. Now, this might sound strange to some of you, but as recently as the year 1700, a man who's considered one of the greatest scientists of all time did not see any difference between magic and science. To him, I mean, Sir Isaac Newton by name. If Sir Isaac Newton were to see that any of you use something like this, and most of you probably have one, he'd think that we were carrying around magical devices. Devices that enabled you to talk to someone and see the person you're talking to from hundreds of miles away. He'd think that was magic. Again, he didn't know the difference. But their priests, particularly in Egypt, what we call priest they would call scientists, or they looked on them as being both scientist and priest. There was, I mean, in our society, we have the priest is a religious person, the minister is a religious person, our scientist is a person educated in the arts of science, but they saw no difference. The priest was a scientist. The scientist was a priest. So if they wanted a scientific question answered, well, they'd go to a priest. They saw no difference. Politics, science, and theology all were lumped together. Now, they asked a politician one time and said, "Oh, I know what you believe on your religious belief about abortion, but apart from your religious belief, what about your political beliefs?" You know, one politician said, "Oh, politically, I'm in favor of choice. But now religiously, I'm in favor of no abortion." The ancient world did not make any such distinction. What you were there, you only had one set of beliefs, and that included your politics, your science, your religion, your everyday life, just one set of beliefs. Now another politician answered, "Apart from my religious beliefs, I have no other beliefs." Again, he would be more in tune with the ancient world. What they believed religiously was their whole belief system, their whole belief set. Again, no conflict. Now, I must say this about the present conflict between science and theology. It appears to me that the only religion that conflicts with science is Christianity. And in no way do I mean to be anti-Christian when I say that. It's just that 21st century science attempts to answer questions that might be better off left alone. But, folk, in 1950, the year after I was born, several scientists got together and proclaimed we're on the verge of explaining everything. We just about have an explanation for every phenomenon in the universe. They call it the TOE, or theory of everything. One standard theory that explains everything. Today we realize, hey, there's a lot of things going on in this universe that we are simply not going to explain. Also, science has proven to be wrong in many instances. I mean, one of the things that comes to mind is, when I was younger, they said the planet Mercury always kept the same face of the sun. So one of my children was reading an old science book one time, and it said the planet Mercury always keeps the same face toward the sun. Today, we know better. The planet Mercury actually turns both faces toward the sun. Other phenomena, we start studying quantum mechanics or quantum physics, and really, really strange things occur. The outcome, the results of a lot of your quantum experiments depends on the observer. It's like if the quanta believe they're being observed, they're going to behave one way. If they don't believe they're being observed, they're going to behave another. How many of you have heard this outside of class? Several of you. Depends on the observer, folk. It's almost as if quantum particles almost had a mind of their own. I've got to stop there. How much do we know about the universe outside our solar system? I'll give you a hint. It can be summed up in one word. What's that one word that describes all that we know? Very little, nothing. Or even better, but that's pretty close. Almost nothing.
We know more about our galaxy than our own oceans.
About what?
We know more about our galaxy than we know about our own oceans on the Earth.
Yeah.
Maybe. All right, let me just try to remind you of something. Newton's law of gravity that works so well inside our solar system, apply it to the galaxy, and there's just not enough matter. The galaxy should not hold, all galaxies should not hold together. So what did scientists do? They postulated 95% you must be made of dark matter. Again, have any of you heard any of this outside? A few of you? Yeah, well, but the problem is, where is the dark matter? We haven't found any of it yet. And then how could distant galaxies be drifting away from us at speeds of 25,000 miles a second? If you don't know the answer, I don't either. And neither do our professional scientists. So, I mean, okay, you can say that we know more about our galaxy than we know about our Earth. Well, we can count multiplied millions of stars in our own But beyond that, there's not a lot we know about. I mean, okay, when we say that the nearest star is 4.5 light years away, folks, we're making about 30 assumptions. I'll name a few. We're making an assumption. Number one is the speed of light remains constant from there to here. That's a totally unprovable assumption. We're making an assumption that the light from there to here travels in a straight line, even though we know a lot of things bend and curve light. It's an assumption that cannot be proven, not yet. We're making assumptions that we know how many dust particles there are between here and there that might influence the light that we're receiving from there. Improvable. Many, many more things that we are assuming that we know, not any of which we can actually be sure that we know. Our satellites have only been about maybe 24 light hours from the Earth. To get to the nearest star, we have 4.5 years to go. If we could go 18,000 miles a second, it would take us 4,500 years to get to the nearest star. We can't go that fast yet. There are persons usually that quanta interact, that every quantum particle interacts with every other quantum particle at an instantaneous speed. In other words, a quantum particle on Earth is interacting with a quantum particle billions of light years away instantaneously. That light traveling in interstellar space travels at an infinite speed. In other words, as soon as it leaves, it arrives. You can't disprove it. All right. Therefore, is it surprising that science is going to conflict with something? All right. Well, if you don't like what I'm saying, I'm sorry. Disprove it. Okay. But anyway, the ancients had no conflict between their politics, their science, and their religion. All right. With that said, I am going to move on to where I left off last time. I'm looking at page 26, the children of Israel.
Are those other terms?
Okay, I didn't hear the question clearly, so please ask it again.
Were we supposed to know all the terms on the whiteboard?
In one word, yes. I mean, hey, yeah. Hey, again, if I'm taking the trouble to write it down, I mean, maybe you missed my explanation I gave for that at the beginning of the class, but like I say, I've